So let me tell you just a little bit about the Texas Living Waters Project. It is one of our flagship programs at the Texas office of the Sierra Club. It's a collaborative project between National Wildlife Federation, the Texas office of Sierra Club, and Galveston Bay Foundation as a regional partner. It's a joint project. We're trying to reform the way that Texas manages and uses its fresh water. Small goal. Just trying to change the way we do things in Texas completely. And so we're working on many policy fronts. There's a lot to do. We've had to kind of try to narrow our focus with our staff. We've got two people at Sierra Club working on this, and then Ken Kramer, our forever volunteer that used to be our chapter director, and 5 people at National Wildlife Federation. So we've got, and then Galveston Bay Foundation. So we've got a good amount of people working on it. But so we're working on several different policy fronts, and we're working to ensure that we have water for both people and the environment. It's pretty simple. You know, we've got to meet our water needs, as you've heard from Julie and Denise and everybody, but we've also got to make sure that we meet our environmental water needs as well. So I'm just going to quickly go over, and you can see this is our website here. We've got these little bookmarks. My son uses bookmarks for everything, so I think they're very useful. And with our website on it, you can pick one up and remind yourself where it is. But this is our website. And a lot of this information is on the Texas Sierra Club webpage too, but we do have our separate project website so we can get it all organized in one fashion. So we work on conservation, which is using our existing water supplies efficiently in all sectors, municipal, industrial, agricultural. You've heard how important that is tonight over and over again at this meeting. And as Denise said, we're supposed to meet 25% of our future water needs, not just in Region C, but in Texas from conservation. So we've got a lot of work to do. Drought is another area of focus. We are really trying to give communities the tools and promote proactive response to drought conditions in order to prolong our water supplies. A lot of times communities do not respond to drought quick enough and wait until the map turns red and wait until there's a water supply emergency or treatment emergency, when we've known that we're in a climatological drought for quite a while. So we're asking communities to really be proactive about implementing drought contingency plans, because that's what they're there for, in order to stretch our water supplies. And we've seen a lot of progress on that. And one example that I've seen with drought management and drought response is in the communities in the North Texas area working together with all the different jurisdictions that are in this big media market, working together to have some kind of continuity between their drought stages. They may not all go into different drought stages at the same time, but at least stage 2 would mean the same thing in different communities. And that work is happening right now, and I know Dallas has been working on it in the North Texas communities as well, I believe. So that's helpful to you guys and the folks that use water in these communities, because it can get confusing because there's a whole bunch of different communities and water suppliers, I feel. Groundwater work. So we do a lot of work on groundwater, and our goal there is that we use groundwater sustainably, that we don't remove water from aquifers faster than rainfall can replenish it. It's a pretty simple concept. And groundwater is oftentimes connected to our surface water resources, so if we overuse groundwater, it can affect base flows in rivers and affect species habitat, especially in the hill country region, which is where I do a lot of work. And on the groundwater front lately, as folks are looking for new water supplies and looking for kind of more drought-proof water supplies, looking away from building reservoirs that evaporate, that have issues with permitting that are very expensive, they're looking at groundwater-based projects such as aquifer storage and recovery, where you get clean, potable, treated water you inject underground into aquifers to store it for when you need it. And then also brackish groundwater desalination is becoming very popular, at least the concept of it. There are a lot of projects around Texas, but there's a lot more talk about these kinds of projects than they actually are. But we're monitoring a lot of legislation at the legislature right now that are Another area is regional water planning. You heard Denise mention Region C. There's 16 regional water planning groups in Texas. The North Texas area is Region C. I serve on the Region K water planning group, which is the Lower Colorado River group. We have Sierra Club folks, volunteers, staff that serve on many of the regional water planning groups around the state, but it's very important to be engaged in what's happening right now. The regional water planning groups are finalizing their initially prepared plans. They're putting together a plan for how much water this region needs for the next 50 years, what supplies are already in place, where the gaps are, and what those new supplies are going to be. That's a gross simplification of a very complicated process. But so keep an eye out for those plans that are coming out. They're going to have the draft plans adopted by May 1st, so everyone will have the summer to look them over. Region C's plan will be very big and complicated, I'm sure, but we will have information on Texas Living Waters Project website about that, and so you all can learn more about what's in the plan. But it's very important. It's very important to include conservation as a water management strategy. It's very important to include drought. And one thing that's not in these plans that really needs to be, that we're working really hard to get included, is we plan to meet the water supply needs for all these different user groups, agriculture, livestock, mining, power generation, cities. I'm missing one because there's 6, but we're not planning to meet environmental needs, and that's a big hole. It's an incomplete plan as far as I'm concerned. So, do you have a question?
I do have a question.
Yes.
What about SB3 that was passed in 2007?
So SB3 was passed in 2007, and it sets up this other process where we look at what the environmental water needs are for our different river and bay areas, say the river and the connected bay area. And so what that does is it establishes how much water is needed, and then it's adopted by TCQ. It's a pretty complicated process, I'm simplifying it. And then any unpermitted, and then TCQ, our state environmental agency, has to consider the amount of water that's needed in any future permitting. So it doesn't affect any current permits, and frankly, most of the water in Texas is already permitted, so it doesn't affect a vast majority of the water in the state. And so looking more to the eastern part of the state, which is where this would be in effect. And so if it juxtapositions with regional water planning in the way that if there was a plan, a water supply project proposed in one of these areas, and the SB3 process had said we need to reserve 100 units of water to maintain subsistence flow, to maintain a sound ecological habitat for our rivers and bays, then using the water availability models, this is getting complicated, for the state, which is what they base the water planning on, you would not be able to access that amount of water. So it is protective, but of a very small amount. And what we really need in the regional water planning process is a proactive planning for water to meet environmental needs. And in many cases, that water is, we have information that tells us how much water should be there, but that water's not there. And we're going to have to go out and find ways to do it, like partnerships with cities, or having a city dedicate half of its effluent return flows to meet environmental needs, or purchasing water rights, or having agreements with farmers for during dry times to provide base flow. So there's all kinds of different strategies, which is a good segue to our last policy area, which is keeping rivers flowing and environmental needs. Water management decisions and new water development projects should avoid adverse impacts to wildlife. And where sufficient water is not available to support a sound ecological environment, we need to find ways to make sure that water is available through different methods, which I just mentioned, and lots of other ones. I mean, this is kind of new territory in Texas, and the water's just always been there. But the reality is that most of that water is already permitted, and as we continue to grow, as our population doubles, that water that's already permitted will be used, and our rivers, frankly, not to sound alarmist, be dewatered. we could return water to the rivers through treated effluent, but as reuse programs gear up more and more, we just have to be very mindful of our impact on the environment. Yes, sir.
You were saying permitted. Could you expand upon exactly what that means? Because
Yes.
Senior, junior water rights, and they have particular
Yes.
access, which is required to be followed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so surface water in the state of Texas is permitted through the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, and our permitting system is it's a priority system. So if your water right has a date on it that is, say, 1900, you have a very senior water right, which means you have first access to that water right. Say, because I know the cities are, say Austin has a 1900 water right, and then a community upstream has a 1950 water right. And there's not a whole lot of water in the river. That community upstream would have to let that water pass because they're in junior water right, so Austin could pick it up out of the river. So the date on your water right is very important. And most of the big water, like I said, is tied up in water rights already. North Texas has several water rights and rights associated with the water reservoirs they manage. The city of Austin has big water rights, so does Houston, many of the communities. But then also a lot of the water rights are held by agricultural interests and all kinds of, and the water rights are granted in perpetuity. So if like me, you're very interested in who owns the water, and what the priority dates are, and how they're using it, and would it possibly be a good candidate for helping to meet some environmental needs, or would these people be interested in, looking around at water rights is something you have to do to try to answer those questions. And we're just starting that work ourselves because I think that's one of the answers to meeting our environmental needs in the future. So we work in these 5 policy areas, conservation, drought response,